Hi guys, Grand J here, and today's going to be the first video that we do in quite some time. Today I'm going to be looking at the previews for the Final Fantasy trading card game Opus 2. So with Opus 2 pre-releases happening in about a week from now, we're going to have our first actual hands-on play with some of these new cards in this new set, and so I just kind of want to go through some of the new cards, or actually older new cards that are being released in Opus 2 and talk about them a little bit and give them my sort of like evaluation on how good they are and how much I think they'll see play. So yeah. So first of all, a big thank you to all the guys from Germany who posted up all these images in regards to all the cards that we're talking about. They're not the English versions, and certainly they're not super high quality versions, but they are what we have right now. And so they're on screen just so you have a bit of idea what these cards will look like. But in future, when we're making proper videos, I'm going to try to get the proper images. And also a big shout out to the guys who put up a full document with English translations to all these cards, and that's what I'm going to be using. So you guys have made this video possible. In this video, we're going to be looking at the fire cards, and so we're going to break this up into 6 videos, and we're going to look at each of the elements specifically, and we're probably going to chuck the light and dark cards into the water video because water is at the end of the set. But alright, so let's get started. So our first card that we're looking at is backup, free cost Irvine. So when Irvine enters the field, choose on forward, deals it 6,000 damage. This one's interesting. It's actually like kind of a step up from quite a lot of other sort of fire backups that deal damage when they come into play. Black Mage is an example. Magus is an example. At free cost, it's actually reasonably costed. But for 6,000 damage, I'm not sure that that's a relevant enough number to make Irvine see play. Mainly because a lot of forwards in this game happen to be 7,000 power or higher. So 7,000 power is really that sweet spot that you want to hit in order to be able to kill a forward straight out. 6,000 power by itself isn't enough to put you over the edge for a lot of guys. So I'm going to be questioning a little bit more in regards to how much play might see. Although this set does look like it will have a lot more 2 and 3 cost units that are around like the 5,000 to 6,000 power range. So this could potentially see play. It depends on like how the metagame really shifts up, whether it's going to be very weenie heavy, like 2 and 3 drop heavy, or whether it's going to be like sort of 4 and 5 onwards heavy. It might see play. It certainly depends upon the meta. But yeah. So next card is 2 cost summon. It's an Ifrit. So Ifrit is kind of like the summon version of this, in that it has its EX burst. Choose one forward, deal at 6,000 damage. So it sits very nicely between 1 cost Ifrit and 3 cost Brynhilde. So it deals 6,000 damage, which is that middle between 2, and at cost 2, it's actually quite cost effective. So being cost 2, you can play it by just discarding a card or tapping 2 backups, compared to Brynhilde, which you have to tap a backup and discard a card. So that 2 cost saving, that's quite a good margin. But at 6,000 power, again, I don't feel that standalone it can do enough by itself. So I don't think if it's going to see a lot of play. Bahamut Fury, like if you really want to have that value in terms of not having to overcommit like an extra 1 resource, or only be able to cast a nuke at 2 costs, Bahamut Fury is already pretty decent at that, and it also has the flexibility to bump you up to 7,000 damage if you need to. I'm not sure if this is going to see a lot of play. It's really hard to displace a lot of the summons that are already in play, especially in Fire, when it's just dealing damage, and there's a lot of ways to deal damage. So the next card to look at is Ward. So Ward is a free cost forward with 5,000 power. So it's a little bit underpowered when it comes into play. When Ward attacks, it gains 3,000 power until the end of the turn. So standard 5,000 power dude, it goes up to 8,000 power when it's attacking. I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. Mainly because 5,000 power is like a really low number, and in a lot of cases there's a lot of forwards and backups that when they do just like random packets of damage will be able to deal 5,000. And going up to 8,000 while attacking, I don't think that benefit really sort of pushes Ward up high enough to make it see a lot of play. So you can play free drop units that are already 7,000 power and have some sort of ability when they come into play. So it's really hard to justify a dude that's 5,000 power so significantly below the curve and only gets a little bit more above the curve when it's attacking. So I don't think you'll see much play. Next card on the list is Ephemeral Ephemeral Phantom. Ephemeral Phantom, 2 cost forward, it's got 5,000 power, so it's pretty standard in terms of size there. When your opponent controls 2 or more forwards, Ephemeral Phantom gains plus 2,000 power. So I think that this card is fine. At 5,000 power, 2 cost, it's standard size. Its power is just a little bonus on top. Your opponent having 2 or more forwards is also happens quite commonly, so it's not too hard to trigger its ability and push it up to 7,000. Although do note that if this card were to ever trade against something with like say 6,000 power, like if it were to enter combat with something with like 6,000 power, and then after that, after your opponent's forward dies, and if your opponent only has 1 forward, Ephemeral Phantom will end up killing itself because it bumps its power back down to 5,000. So I think it might see play in like Seal just because it's a decent enough dude, but I don't think you really want to be playing this very much in any sort of constructed deck. Next card is 2 cost backup Sage. So when Sage enters the field, choose 1 forward, it gains haste until end of turn. I think this card is actually going to see a reasonable amount of play. Like I don't think it'll be necessarily a free of, but definitely the ability to give a guy haste attached to just like a very standard backup cost is like really quite good. Being able to add haste to a guy that needs to use a dull ability, or giving haste to a guy that just straight up wants to attack, is something like in all games, haste is a very strong ability. And to be able to chuck it onto a 2 cost backup is quite good, because 2 cost backups are like your standard backups that you want to be playing, so you can just chuck it down, give a dude haste, and not really like worry or think too much about it. I think it's a card that's on paper, it's just like it just ticks all the boxes. Maybe it doesn't have the greatest synergy with a lot of other bits and pieces, but I think just on paper it looks strong. So like it'll see play, maybe 2 copies of in fire decks, and it also unlocks a whole lot of sort of like OTK, like 1-turn kill combos, or just a whole lot of combo decks that you really don't want to be forced to wait a turn by tapping, waiting a turn so you can dull or tap a guy in order to use their ability. So I think that this is actually pretty solid. Next card is Saz. It's a forward at 2 costs, 3,000 power, so it's quite significantly below the curve. So when Saz attacks, choose 1 forward and opponent controls, deal 1,000 damage for each point of damage you have received. So this will obviously deviate somewhere between 0 to 6,000 power when it attacks. I don't think this will see much play. I don't understand why they had to like undercost his size that much. At two costs, at 2 costs, it's like quite a cheap unit. But at 3,000 power, it gets blown up by pretty much any sort of like AOE abilities. There's a ton of sort of like AOE abilities. For example, in Fire Magus, that just like can deal 3,000 damage without worrying too much. And I think Saz will just get blown up. Yes, you can give him haste, but then again, you're like playing a 2 cost dude, and you're hasting him just so you can potentially deal like 5k damage. I don't think you really want to be in a position where you want to have like 6 damage on you and relying on this 2 cost card to possibly deal 6,000 damage. At which point you probably just want to play Squall when you think about it. His like you can't really rely on him, and its effect doesn't have a big enough payoff for it to be relevant. If its body was like 5,000 power and dealt 1,000 damage for each point that you received, I think it would see play. Even at 4,000 power, I think it's balanced, but I think at 3,000, just significantly too weak for it to see any play. So, next card is legendary card for one of the 2 legendary cards for Fire, Emperor Zande. Could be Emperor Zand. All right, I think it might be Emperor Zand. Okay, so Emperor Zand. So 5 costs forward. That's got 9,000 power, so it's pretty on par there. The Emperor Zand can only be played using Fire CP, so you can only discard Fire cards and only use Fire backups in order to play Zand. So it's a little bit difficult, and obviously pretty much limits him to mono Fire. You could potentially splash some other stuff, but you really don't want to be like splashing in too much of a secondary color in order to be able to play him effectively, consistently. So when Emperor Zand attacks, choose 1 forward and opponent controls, deal it 5,000 damage. When Emperor Zand is put from the field into a break zone, choose 1 forward and opponent controls, deal it 9,000 damage. Okay. So to digest this card a little bit, 9,000 power at 5 is pretty standard. The cost, however, is a little bit steep. So you pretty much have to play mono Fire in order to play this card. And when it attacks, choose a forward, deal it 5,000 damage. I don't think that 5,000 damage is a significant enough of a nuke to really push us up to that sort of like, pushes up to that like must play level. Like, so for example, if you look at Opus 1, Squall in Ice was just a must play free of, because its effect is so strong. But in this case, I feel that when you attack and you deal 5,000 damage, 5,000 isn't a huge amount of damage, and so kind of where's the follow up? So it's like, yes, you do 5,000 damage or something, but you're going to need something else to like push that damage over into lethal range, you know. So I think the card is fine. Of course, it's like it's going to brute force a lot of players, but I think considering how difficult, and I think people might be underrating how difficult it is to put him into play, except when you lock yourself into mono red. And I don't think the cost really justifies his ability. So his secondary ability is like when it's put from the field in the break zone, shoot it forward, deal it 9,000 damage. So of course that's pretty handy, you know, like when it dies, deals something 9,000 damage. It basically takes someone with the grave of him, which I suppose it's pretty handy, you know. So this card is probably more of a value card as opposed to, say, a control or combo card, in that like he's just going to trade with dudes. If you trade to a dude, you get to nuke something else. You're probably going to be up on card, so I think the card's fine, but I don't think it's going to be super like particularly overpowered or particularly strong. Next card is Zell at free cost. At free cost, it's a forward at 6,000 power, so it's a little bit below the curve. When Zell attacks, choose one forward of cost 3 or less than opponent controls. It cannot block this turn. So in a way, it's very similar to, say, one cost Snow. So when it attacks you, its effect triggers before your opponent can block, and it basically takes one free cost or less forward out of that combat phase. Basically makes them unable to block. I think this card is like I don't really see why this card needs to see play, because like if you compare it to Snow is a one cost unit at 3,000 power that's already effectively got this ability. In fact, it's probably a little bit stronger in that it makes any forward dull, right? Whereas this just makes a free cost or less, so it's already conditional in that regard, and it makes unable to block. And Zell is below curve as well, so at 6,000 power, you know, like he's not really like fighting a lot of dudes particularly well. So yeah, there are 2 drops I can trade into him, like for example, like Tama or Barrett and stuff that they'll like be able to like trade into him, and yeah. Being able to make a free cost lower, unable to block, I don't think the payoff is good enough to justify its like smaller body. So I don't think this will see much play competitively. Next card is Selfie. 2 cost. It's a 2 cost backup, and its ability is pay 2 fire and dull it. Choose one attacking forward against 2,000 power to end a turn. I think this is fine. You know, like most decks have to play a certain amount of 2 cost backups, just because you need to get that first backup in to get things rolling. And obviously, what you choose for your 2 cost backups, in a lot of cases, you just want to find the ones that are very relevant to your deck. And I think in this case, even though you're probably not going to be using Selfie too many times, just because its effect is quite expensive in that you have to you have to pay 2 fire and dull it, so it's effectively like free CP in a way. In order to give a guy 2,000 power. So you're not going to be using it too often, but you know, every now and then, if your opponent does have an interesting combat trick, or you need to be able to bump someone up over the line, I think that your option is always there. So being able to put down like a 2 cost backup, not worry about it, and if in certain situations where it is relevant, you can use it and it's going to be great. So I think that this will see play. Possibly as a 2-off in certain fire decks, but I think this card's good. It's not one of those cards that really stands out, but it's, you know, it's cheap, it's well costed, to get in there, and like if its effect is ever relevant, you know, it's great to have that option. Next card is, it's just a standard unit forward warrior. It's 2 cost, 5,000 power, so it's average for 2 cost. And it pays 1 fire, warrior gains plus 1,000 to end a turn. I think this is fine. Obviously, like, there's a lot more support in this set for standard units in regards to all the like Warrior of Light type cards. Like, to be honest, like for 1 fire, it's pretty cheap. cost to be able to pump it up by 1,000. It's going to be really in competitive play. It's not going to. It's going to be really hotly contested with stuff like Warrior of Light, which is already so strong, and potentially like 2-cost Tifa and so on. But you know, like as like a sealed play or a draft card, it's fine. You know, like 5,000 power for 2 costs, and like if you're just tapping backups or you have free backups open, then you can just like bump its power up. So you know, it's just a guide, not particularly special, but it's not bad by any means. Next card is 5-cost Tifa. So this is a second legendary for fire. 5-cost Tifa, it's 9,000 power. When Tifa attacks, choose one forward. It cannot block this turn, so it's effectively got a red mage effect built into it. And it's got an S ability, Dolphin's Blow. So paying DES and free fire on top. Forwards of cost 3 or less cannot block this turn. I don't think this card is very good. Yeah, okay, look. I'm gonna get some flack for this, but I don't think this card is particularly good. Mainly because so first of all, it doesn't have any support in it doesn't have the ability to gain haste with Zangan. So Zangan is that really good backup from the Final Fantasy VII starter deck that searches for a Tifa and also gives Tifas of cost 4 or less haste. So this Tifa it's a 5-cost. It doesn't get haste from that. If it did, I think this card would see play. But the fact that it doesn't automatically get haste if you have Zangan on the field, I think weakens it. Yes, it does have a built-in sort of red mage ability. But, you know, there's plenty of ways to make your guys able to attack through. And I think that you're kind of overpaying to try to get this cost, you know, like to try to get this effect. There are other ways to get similar sort of effects. You can like just play a red mage, or you can have stuff like Lan, or yeah, just stuff like Snow, you know, ways to get around your opponent's dudes. And I think like having to pay 5 to get a body in order to do that, I don't think that it has a strong enough impact straight away in order to like make it relevant. Especially considering that in this set there seems to be quite a bit of interesting hate for 5 costs and above. So like I think it's going to struggle, and its S ability isn't particularly groundbreaking in that like forwards of cost 3 or less cannot block. So yeah, most of the really good like forwards are just 4 costed. And yeah, whatever, like your opponent's 3 costs can't block. But then like your opponent will be contesting with all the other guys, you know? So like while it is able to allow you to make it very difficult for your opponent to block in that particular turn, in that you can stop all 3 costs and then her attack itself can also stop another guy from blocking. I don't think it has. I think it's at 5. It costs a little too much, and you're generally like running out of steam, and its effect isn't impactful straight away. Like with Tifa 4, you're always threatening to be able to haste out an 8,000 power dude and potentially like water kick a guy to dull it. And I think that is a much more valuable and gives you more options kind of package than this Tifa offers. So that's why I don't think this Tifa will see a lot of play. People are going to try it out, but it's probably only going to really show it's really much more of a win more card. So if you're not doing well on board like already, then it's not going to significantly like bump you up that much more. So next card is Teller. Teller is a 4-cost backup. It's the Sage. Dull and put Teller into the break zone. Choose one forward, deal it 9,000 damage. So it's a 4-cost backup that you put into play, and at some point when you want to activate its ability, you just dull it, break it, and then you deal for 9,000 damage to a guy. I think that this will see play. 9,000 damage pretty much like destroys anything that isn't like a big beefy beater. Yeah, like pretty much anything, like most 5-cost dudes and below are all like 9,000 or less. So it pretty much says just kill a dude, right? Although it is expensive to put in, so it is a 4-cost backup, but I think that like its ability, like just having it available later on or in the mid game to just instantly blow up a dude is like really handy. So I think that this card will see play. In mid rangey decks, it should see play of like maybe a 2 of. I think it gives a lot of options. I think the card is quite strong. Yeah. So obviously it is quite weak against any sort of like backup remover, and you just kind of cry inside a little bit if your opponent like blows it up with like Hecaton Care or something. But yeah, I think this card's solid, and it has some good, interesting synergies with Auron. So I'm going to really be looking forward to next set when I can just swing through with 6-cost Auron, put stuff like Teller down, and then like have tons of value later on. So yeah, I think this card's solid. I think maybe a little bit above solid as well. 2-cost Ninja standard unit, forward at 4,000 power. It's got first strike. When Ninja is blocked, deal the blocking forward 2,000 damage. So in effect, it really kind of acts as like a 6,000 power first striker. At 2 costs, I think it's pretty solid. You know, at 2 costs, you're really looking at like that 5,000 or 6,000 power, and it can like trade into like 6,000 power guys, or like it can first strike 6,000 power guys. Yeah, like this will be like definitely this is a card that you like depending on which colors that you play. But like ninjas have like quite a decent amount of support now, especially in like they're standard units, so they get Warrior of Light support, and they also have like edge support for ninjas as well. So like I think ninjas are gonna be a thing. People gonna try ninjas because people love ninjas. Ninjas are cool, okay. So this might see play. I'm not sure about like which colors, but you're definitely gonna have to play wind if you want to play ninjas. So it just kind of depends upon what your secondary color is. But if you go fire ninjas, this probably might be able to go in. You get them cheap, do good damage with them. They have first strike. Yeah. So like I feel it's significantly weaker in sealed, but like in constructed, this might be fun to play. Next card, free cost forward, bash. So at free cost, it's at 7,000 power. If you control a card named Ash, bash gets 2,000 power, so it goes up to 9,000, which is pretty good. And it's got an S ability, pay free fire, then pay 2 CP, dull it, choose up to 2 forwards, deal them 9,000 power. So basically, it's got pay 5 S, dull this guy to Bahamut, right? It doesn't have the remove from game effect that Bahamut does, which means it's not necessarily a good counter for stuff like Gold Bears or Emperor and so on. But to be able to nuke 2 guys for 9,000 power, it's particularly good. See, I would much rather like be in a situation where I would rely on bash to like get rid of 2 dudes, than potentially use 5-cost Tifa to try to make 1 guy unblockable. Because like I've played like aggro fire and aggro fire ice, and Bahamut's there actually like just towards the late game when you want to leak through that like last 1 or 2 damage, being able to just blow up 2 dudes for 9,000, just like helps you significantly get over the edge. So maybe you're not gonna like activate it in like every game, but I think just like having a 9,000 power body, and just on the off chance where the sides dual line, you can just blow up 2 dudes. I think that's quite strong. So I think this card will see play. Obviously you'd have to play to fire water so you can get the Ash Bash synergy. But I think this card is very strong. So obviously if you're playing those 2 colors, you're going to be playing Bash, and I think you're going to have situations where you just like win because you like destroy 2 of their guys. Next card is free cost forward Palom. So before we talk about the free cost Palom, I'm going to talk more about the 1-cost Palom first, okay? So 1-cost Palom, it's a forward, it's 1,000 power. When Palom attacks, choose a forward and opponent controls, deal it 2,000 damage. Not particularly amazing by itself. If this card deals damage to your opponent, or if a forward damaged by Palom is sent to the break zone this turn, you may put this Palom into the break zone. If you do, search your deck for another card named Palom and put it onto the field. So yeah, this card isn't particularly strong, but its main use is just to be able to pull the other Palom out, okay? And so the other Palom, which is a free cost Palom, it's free cost 6,000 power, so it's slightly below the curve in regards to its power. But when it enters the field other than from your hand, choose a forward, you may deal it 7,000 damage. So when it comes into play using like, say, for example, the other Palom's ability or some other ability that can say bring it back from the break zone, you get a Brynhilde attached to it. You're able to nuke a dude for 7,000 power. So that's straight up like makes its effect like it's a relevant effect, 7,000 power. And it's got an S ability where it works with another similar card called Porum. So S ability, dull 1 active Porum you control, and deal your opponent 1 point of damage. So this is going to be one of those interesting cards where you're going to see like fun sort of combo decks that are going to use this card. I like this card thematically. I don't think it's going to be super competitive enough to see like super competitive play, but I think that there's going to be times where you can just eke out 1 or 2 like damage with this, and that just like that gets you over the line. So I think this card's very cool, especially there's plenty of synergies to get this card in, especially because so for example, like if you play Ice, there's Devout that can bring a 4 or lower forward back from your break zone onto the field. So this is one example where you can also activate Palm's ability to deal 7,000 to a guy without actually having to trigger off the other Palm's ability. So I think this is going to be a fun card. And it's going to be cool when you do get to activate it. I don't think it's going to see a lot of competitive play, but like it's going to be fun and build a deck around it. I'm certainly going to try to build some sort of combo bullshit with this, so I think it's going to be fun, and yeah, we'll give it a shot. So next card is a 4-cost forward Bergen. So 4-cost forward, 8,000 power, so it's on curve. That's what you expect out of a 4-cost forward. It's 1 fire and 1 standard CP, deal all forwards to your opponent's control, 1,000 damage, so not particularly amazing, especially considering that fire has a lot of ways of dealing damage. Paying 2 to deal 1,000 damage to all your opponent's guys, it's very overcosted, and there are more efficient ways to deal packets of damage in fire. So that ability doesn't impress me very much. But on top of that, there's also a drawback as well. When Bergen is chosen by summon, put Bergen into break zone, and I think that is what wrecks you the hardest. The fact that he's got an ability that can instantly kill him when targeted, and it's not like he's got an overpowered body to justify it. Like if he was like free cost 8,000, then possibly you can justify it. But like there's gonna be times where like where your opponent just like fairies it or like golems it, stuff that is like has no offensive ability. Like just things that you like that can target both like enemy forwards and your forwards. They can just cast on that shit and just blow it up easily. So this card is one of the cards that I would consider like bad. Like there's not many cards in this set that I would consider like bad, but this is a card that I consider bad. Like just don't play this card. Like his ability doesn't make up for it, his body doesn't make up for it, and he's got like such a shitty like drawback that you just don't play him. You're just setting yourself up to cry if you do. So next card is Summoner. It's a backup, 2-cost backup standard unit. So Dole puts Summoner into break zone. If forward receives damage this turn, the damage increases by 1,000 instead. So obviously this is like a very like combo centric card. So in that you want to be dealing lots of little packets of damage in order to you want to be dealing a lot of little packets of damage in order to make this really effective. Stuff like your Stola or Dancer or like we said before, Bergen. Things that can deal like little packs of damage, multiple little packets of damage to a lot of dudes on the field, makes this like card significantly more effective in that you're adding more packets of 1,000 damage increases. It also seems, from what I'm reading the card, doesn't necessarily have to be from abilities, could also just be from from combat as well. So that potentially is just like straight up just like an extra 1,000 damage. I don't think like people will try to make it like played in some sort of like interesting combo deck. So I'd be surprised if I see stuff like this like come out and it'd be like cool or whatever. But it's not going to see competitive play. Like I think that you're paying a lot in order to just base in most cases just deal like 1,000 extra damage. Like yeah. And if you're not like if you set up the board so you can get like 3,000 extra damage, why wouldn't you just play like an Ifrit or a Black Mage or something? Like I feel that this card is like too situational, and it's too difficult to get a benefit from it in order to see much play. So yeah, I don't think you'll see much competitive play. Next card is a summon. So Belias the Gigas. It's a 2-cost summon. It's got an EX burst. So choose one forward until the end of the turn. That forward gets 1,000 power, haste, and first strike. Draw a card. This card is unbelievably good. So first of all, like at 2-cost, 1,000 power, haste, first strike. I think that's already fair, in the sense that like it's got so much versatility to it. So 1,000 power sometimes is what you need to be able to like force a guy to trade or to survive combat. Giving it haste as well just means it has options of like giving a dude haste and like coming straight out the gates, and first strike as well. So it just like instantly wins combat even if it is even. So this is so versatile in enabling dudes to attack, to win combat, or to get around, like, to get themselves above, like, nuke damage or nuke range. But on top of that, it also draws you a card as well. So, like, if you consider the fact that, like, maybe you're pitching a card to play this, and then you draw a card, so it's virtually a free card. Like, it's virtually a free summon for, like a effect that basically says, you win this combat. You know? Like, this card's extremely good. Like, if... Maybe not run free copies of it, although, I could see it just, like, being run in free copies and, like, your opponent just constantly being afraid to, like, enter combat with you. Like, I'm pretty sure this is probably just gonna be, like free off, you know, straight up. It's like, this card's too good. So yeah, this card is too good. You gotta play it. Yeah. So, next card, Imitation Liegeman. Free cost forward, mannequin, 6,000 power, so it's a little bit below curve. Imitation Liegeman, and when Imitation Liegeman enters the field, choose one forward and opponent controls, deal it 2,000 damage. If you control a mannequin other than Imitation Liegeman, deal it 5,000 instead. So yeah, 5,000 damage. You know, like there's a lot of dudes that just like come into play and like deal a certain amount of nuke at free cost and dealing 5,000 damage. It's a respectable amount, so it's quite a good value amount. But its body's a little bit small. And you have to have like another mannequin in order to make that 5,000 there. When you consider the fact that like say Cloud or say like Zac or like 4-cost Furin don't really see much play, it's hard to like really get on board this card seeing much play. So obviously like if you do play him, you're going to be playing him in one of the few decks that has like the mannequin support. But it's like it's better because it's a mannequin as opposed to its ability, you know? So if you were to play it, you would play it for the fact that it's a mannequin as opposed to its ability, because its ability is like subpar. Like it's not great. But yeah. So yeah, it would only see play in a mannequin deck, otherwise you won't see play. Okay, so next one is Mont Blanc. So it's a 2-cost backup and it's a Moogle, alright? So each of the colors this set has a Moogle backup. They all have an interesting theme. So Mont Blanc is a 2-cost backup. Pay 2 fire and dollar it, so pay effectively free. Choose one forward, deal 1,000 damage for each job Moogle you control. So at this stage, there's like I've looked this up. There's actually like not very many Moogle not many Moogle cards. Each color has a Moogle backup of this nature, and Ice has Mog 12. Yeah, Mog has Mog as a backup. So Ice has a secondary Moogle, but Ice probably has the shittiest like this Moogle ability. These are cool. Obviously, these are going to get better when like more and more Moogles are available in the game. But right now, as they stand, they're not good. They're not particularly good in that. So you think about it, you would want to have a ton of Moogles so that these abilities are more relevant, right? But I was theory crafting it, and so the max sort of Moogle value that you get is like 3 Moogles, right? Because you have to pay say 2 fire in this case, and dull it to deal 1,000 damage to each Moogle you control. So even if you have like one of each Moogle from 3 colors, you need to have like 2 backups, 2 fire backups in order to pay for it, or you'd just be discarding a card. But at that stage, if you're discarding a card and tapping, you'd rather be casting stuff like Ifrit or Brynhilda or something, right? So you're spending so much time and focus to try to get a whole bunch of fucking Rainbow Moogles down just to also discard a card in order to deal 4 grand or something. At this stage, it's not really going to see any competitive play just because there's not enough Moogles. But obviously, as more and more sets come out, it's going to be interesting, and I want to see more of it. So it's not going to see play right now. At this stage, it's pay free and deal maybe like 1,000 to like up to say 3,000 power. So that's not particularly impressive, but who knows? Like this, I hope this is like going to have more support in the future because I love these sort of decks. All right, so next card is 3-cost backup Lunaf. It's a Warrior of Light. So in this set, there's actually quite a lot of cards with Warrior of Light as their job, which is a little bit confusing because you have Warrior of Light as a name. So it's a 3-cost backup, standard unit forward to control gain haste. So this is actually like a really cool ability. So obviously you'd want to run it in the Warrior of Light deck, so that you can like play your standard units, and they have buffs because they're standard units, and then they also have haste, and there's a lot of standard units that straight up have like very very good just like kind of standard abilities like brave or first strike or something. So being able to give them haste is also is particularly good. So imagine if you had like say the water Warrior of Light and you had this Warrior of Light as a backup, right? Imagine like summoning like a 3-cost samurai. A 3-cost samurai is 6,000 power. It comes in, it's got haste, it's got brave, it's got plus 2,000, it's got first strike, right? So that seems kind of strong to me, like 8,000 power, brave, first strike, haste samurais that are coming in, like attacking at 8,000 power, and they're able to block, that seems kind of strong to me. And that doesn't even really require that much setup, you just have to have a particular forward and a particular backup, and like you got these guys that are coming in with so much value and are coming in quite strong. So I think Warrior of Light is going to be like tier 1.5, like maybe possibly tier 1, probably tier 1.5, but it's going to be a super fun casual deck. Like it's going to be a super fun casual deck that has potentially very good like matchups. So I like this. This is going to see play, especially if your Warrior of Light deck is going to go into Fire. And I think Fire is probably one of the better Warrior of Light ways to go. So, 2 more cards. So, 4-cost Rubicante. It's a forward, 4-cost, 9,000 power, so it's above curve, so it's got a drawback effect. So when Rubicante attacks, activate all forwards an opponent controls. So obviously, if it attacks, it makes more of your opponent's dudes able to block it. Obviously, Fire can get around this by like red maging and so on, and making it difficult for your opponent to block, or making your opponent's forwards unable to block. So it's a drawback that is less of a drawback in Fire than it would be in other colors. Its effect is Barrier Shift. So S and 1 Fire. Name 1 element. Rubicante can't be chosen by summons or abilities of the named element this turn. I think this card is solid. It's like the translation here says Archfiend, but I'm pretty sure what that says is Elemental Archfiend. So it's an Elemental Archfiend, so it's got like you're gonna run it in Golbez. But at 9,000 power for 4, it's strong. Like 9,000 power is like top end what you're really expecting out of forwards. So it's going to be attacking, it's going to be trading to guys, and I think personally, even if it does activate your opponent's forwards, like there's only like a subset of forwards that are going to really capitalize on being active again. And those sort of situations, you don't really attack with him. But at 9,000 power, you just like, even if you're just like forcing your opponent to chump block, 9,000 power is strong, and you just attack with this guy. And if your opponent tries to get tries to get smart by like trying to use some sort of abilities and one on him, he's got an internal ability that allows him to just make himself untargetable by a particular color or a particular nuke. And I think that's quite strong. So I think this card will see play. Obviously it'll see play because of the Golbez, but I think that this might actually be like a forward that Golbez deck is actually going to try to play out. So I think it's good. And I don't think its drawback is nearly as bad as like its drawback isn't that bad, in my opinion. And finally, final Fire card is Rosso. 3-cost forward, 5,000 power. If Rosso receives damage, half the damage instead rounded up to a unit of 1,000. So basically, any damage that he takes is halved, rounded up, because this game wants to work in 1,000 power units. This card reminds me very much like Gordon. So if you do the maths on it, anything under 10,000 power won't kill it in combat, right? Actually, technically anything under 9,000, because 9,000 was 4.5 and rounds up to 5. So it can block 5 drops without dying. So it's just kind of a blocker. Obviously, if you're able to pump him up or buff him up to like say 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, then it can just soak through a lot more damage. If you combine it with something like Minwoo, then it's going to have even more durability. So I think this card's going to be I think it's a solid blocker. The big problem is that like even if like a 4,000 power or even if a 7,000 or 8,000 power dude is attacking him and he blocks it, he won't die, but he won't trade back either. So it's more of a defensive card than an offensive card. But I think like if Fire does play some of these like combo or like defensive combo sort of control decks, then this guy will see play. Just because its effect is actually really quite strong. And if you combine it with something like Minwu, then like that effect becomes significantly better. Yeah, even stuff like say Lan, it's able to block Lan because it's smaller than him, but also not die as well. So there's cool little synergies with it. Being free drop means that like there's very few cards that prevent free drops from blocking them. So I think this card may see play in more fringier decks because it's got a good ability, but I don't know if it's what Fire really wants to see to push itself to competitive play. And that's it. Wow, this video went for quite a while. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in to this first Opus 2 spoiler, spoiler preview discussion type video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking to do more and more videos and content in the future. I've sort of got my schedule all worked out a little bit better, so I'm going to be trying to push out content a little bit more. Yeah, so definitely if you guys like the video, please let me know. Put some comments down in the bottom, give me some feedback, and I'll try to do my best to sort of like create the content that you guys want to see in the near future. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. And if I assume that there's a link somewhere, so there's probably a full playlist of all the cards and everything. So click on that. It's probably going to be down below or somewhere. So like click on that somewhere, and yeah, check out the rest of the videos. And I'll catch you guys later. Grand J out.